So someone reached out to me on LinkedIn saying that he was fortunate enough to get an interview with an international company as a UI UX designer. However, when he got to the technical aspect of the interview, that's where they gave him a case study to work on after he submitted his UI. The feedback was that he had to go and work more on his consistency, typography, and all of that. And yes, that's why I'm making this video. If you're just starting out as a UI UX designers, there's certain things that you must pay attention to. I know that you're eager to start designing and start seeing your imagination come to life, or start recreating all those beautiful UIs that you'll be seeing there, especially the ones you go and see on Dribble. But I want you to understand that there are certain things you need to focus on, and that those designs that you see on Dribble, they are often not what we actually use in real life, right? There are a lot of consideration that goes into the end product, the end UI that we put out there for user consumption. And that's why I'm going to say, if you're just starting out as a UI UX designer, here are things that you should pay attention to. Number one is for you to learn how to do user research. Now you need to understand what the audience wants, not just the audience, what the business wants to, right? And when you're making this research, I understand the kind of research I'm going to focus on is competitors research in terms of knowing actually what to design your UI here, right? You need to understand, you need to see what your competitors are doing. When you're seeking inspiration, don't go seeking inspiration places, just places like Dribble, Behance, and all of those things that people playing around with UI, which is fun. But when it comes to the real thing, there's so much more thought process that goes into it. And that's why I would recommend that if you're creating, let's say, a banking application, a fashion website or something, go to those real website, a fintech app, go to those fintech app and look at them. There are apps like Childdeck. Childdeck's application is great. There's Carrywise, there's Flutterwave, those websites, standard industry application, those ones that you see that are already in the market. As much as possible, you can download this application and look at the flows and how they did their thing. And if you're not ready to download the application, then you can make payment on Mobbing, then see how it works, right? So don't play with your user research. When it comes to now, to make sure that your UI is very great, you need to master UI design fundamentals. I think I wrote it out there. Number one is typography. Now, you need to understand how to arrange your typography. You need to know how to pair font. If you're just starting out, I would advise you to stick to one font. If you want to go all in, don't use more than one font, right? Don't use more than one font, and learn hierarchy when it comes to typography. So there's what we call the 8-point grid system, which is what I like using for my designs, right? So I'm going to explain it like a layman. So there's a font size for heading. That's header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4, down to paragraph and the body size, the paragraph size, and all of that. I'm going to link something in this video if I remember, so you can use it as a guide. So for me that likes using 8-point grid system, if I'm using my header 1, right? If I'm using header 1, I'm going to start with a number that is divisible by 8, which means that almost everything I'm going to be using on that screen is going to be numbers divisible by 8, including my corner radius, my spacing. They are all numbers divisible by 8. So now if you don't use font in a way that is you're able to create that hierarchy and that consistency, and that you're able to pass the message. So if you use a font, let's say you use a font header 56 for the header, right, and you made it bold, right, the subtext you can't make it bold again because you need to create that hierarchy, that sharp contrast between what the header is and what the body paragraph or the description is. So you can maybe go in with a 24 or a 16, then maybe change the color from black to something maybe grayish there. But I'm going to link a screenshot here so that you understand. So you need to understand how to use font properly. That's the first thing you're going to focus on, right? So the second thing you can focus on is color theory. You need to understand the 60-30-10 rule for color theory. 60 has to be with main color on the back, your main color, your dominant color in that design, and try for me, I like using white or it's a shade of white, right? But I don't like using, let's say I want to use pink for the background. It depends on what I'm doing, but you have to understand how this works, right? So again, going back to the 60-30% rule, the 60% is the dominant color, which I've already explained, while the 30% is secondary color. Now, this secondary color, what it does is that this color supports the dominant color and creates a visual interest, maybe a color that you're going to be using as to make the design more lively or fun, right? Then the 10% is the accent color. You can most likely use it as your button. But another thing you can do is when you're designing, you can start using, try it. The fact that the primary color of that brand, let's say, is purple, doesn't necessarily mean that your call to action buttons can be purple, right? You can use that their primary color as an accent color, let's say for your icons or text link, as they maintain your the primary buttons, like the buttons in the design to be black, right? Just so you get that harmonious, calm, and matured design, right? So once you have learned, remember I said typography, second one is color, you need to understand layout and grid. Trust me, that's how the human mind works. If something is not layered accordingly, maybe the first test is here, second test maybe is not on the same layer, people unconsciously know it and it just tells them that, oh, this design is not clean and all of that. Learn how to use your grid system when you're designing. If you're just starting out, always put on your grid system. Very important. Don't just freestyle when you're just starting out. Put on your grid system, right? So you need to also understand design consistency. That is where you have to create a mini design system if you're starting, and that's why you define your font size. You define what you're going to be using as header, what you're going to be using as header two, what you're going to be using as body text, and you define your color. So you have to create colors for, let's say, your font, header font, color for subtext, right? You have to define all of this so that if you create the first screen, right, you use the same attributes or the same things that you use for the first screen in the second screen to maintain consistency. And it's very, very important. If you're able to bring down your head and understand it, as basic as it sounds, these are the things that make your design stand out any day, anytime. All right. So if you have any challenge, I'm putting a link to my day 30 days UI design tutorials. You can watch it and you can watch it and learn. I have a lot of designs. The more you practice, the better you are. If you found this video helpful, share to your friends, share to your designer friend, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.